Welcome to this video tutorial and a lesson whereby we are going to look at machines today, and it's a continuation of what we did under circuit analysis in module 2. So here in module 3 we are going to look at machines briefly. So as we'll be going on, you will allow me to be sharing with you the notes, and you feel free to ask questions. So let us start. Let me look for the notes, and you should be able to confirm from the other end that you can see what I'm sharing with you and you can hear me loud and clear. Okay. So can you be able to see somebody to confirm? Can you be able to see the screen?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, I see we are already 3 people. Even as we wait for others to join, who are joining in a short while, I think we can proceed in the meantime. We have Wilson, we have Wambua, Linus is to join, Martha is to join soon, Pascaline, the same, and a few others. So I think we should go straight away to today's topic. So under machines we are looking at basically what we want to see is that by the end of this lesson you should be able to name the main parts of induction machine, and then 2, you should be able to describe the construction of the induction machine. So anybody who can remember, I think it's something we did under circuit analysis in module 2. So anybody who has an idea or who can remember what an induction motor is to remind us. Anybody? Yes, is that Wambua?
Yes.
Yes, so what's an induction motor? And we want to name the main parts of an induction motor. So if you can remind us briefly before we proceed. So the main parts of the induction motor.
There is the rotor.
We have the rotor, very good. That's correct. Another one, or is there anybody else? Another part? The main ones. Oh, the Wilson, that's correct. The stator of the induction motor, that's correct. So basically we have 2 main parts. That's the stator and the rotor. The stator is the stationary part of the induction motor, while the rotor is the rotating part. So straight away we go to description of the construction of the induction motor, and we start with the construction of the stator. So the stator, as we have said, is the stationary part of the induction motor, and it is slotted on the inner periphery to provide for the stator windings. The stator itself is made up of laminations of a thickness of between 0.4 to 0.5 millimeter thickness, and they are stuck together. They are stampings. They are stuck together. The laminations are stuck together, and of course they are insulated. They are painted with enamel paint to insulate them from one another. And why do we laminate them? Is so as we can reduce the effect of the eddy currents and generally the core losses. So that is a brief description of what the stator is. Another thing Okay. I think we have already talked about that. Probably we'll look at the pictorial representation of the stator. On the left, as you can see from my pointer, is the real picture of the disassembled motor showing the stator and of course the windings. And on the right is a drawing of the same, though it has included the rotor. But then basically this outer part is the stator. So another part of the induction motor is the rotor, and as we said, is the rotating part of the machine, of the induction machine, and it has slots on the outer periphery. This is to accommodate the rotor windings. There are two types of the rotor. We have the squirrel cage rotor and the wound type rotor. The squirrel cage rotor, as you can see on your screen, what I'm sharing with you, on the left is the pictorial representation, the picture, the real picture. On the right is the drawing. The squirrel cage rotor is made up of the conductors, which are inserted on the slots. The conductors could be copper bars or aluminum bars, and they are shorted with the end rings. And you know, as you can see, there's no provision for addition of external resistance. So for the squirrel cage rotor, the resistance cannot be alternated, or they cannot be altered, I mean. And therefore, normally they do have inferior starting torque. The wound type rotor actually consists of real windings, the copper wires, and it has normally there are three-phase wound actually, and one side of the windings are shorted together, that's to form a star point, and the other ends are brought out through the slip rings. And at the point of the slip rings, we have the brushes which rest on top of the slip rings, which allow for addition of external resistance, which we are referring to as the rheostat. So therefore, this type of motor can have its starting torque altered so as to be able to be used appropriately. So far we have we named the main parts of the induction motor. We said we have the stator and the rotor. We have described the stator, and we talked of it's made up of laminations. It has slots on the inner periphery to allow for the stator windings. And we looked at the rotor, and we said there are two types of the rotor: the squirrel cage, which has copper bars or aluminum bars that are shorted by end rings, and the wound type rotor, which has which is three-phase wound, and one side is shorted together. One side of the winding is shorted together to form a star point, and the other brought out through slip rings. So that, I think, brings us to the end of our lesson today. So any question before I finally give out the assignment? Any question? Any question? Perhaps one? Or Wilson?
Why are red short?
Why are?
The winding short at the end to form a star. Why?
For the wound type rotor? Or the squirrel cage?
The squirrel cage.
For the squirrel cage rotor.
Yes.
Yeah, normally as we said, there is no allowance or room for addition of external resistance, and therefore they are shorted together. So this, in essence, is to, of course, just lower the resistance. But again, there's no any particular reason for shorting them, but is just a way as in which they are constructed. The real flow of how current will be flowing will depend on the rotating magnetic field. So there's no big reason as to why they are shorted at the end. One more question before we conclude.
Yeah, I have a question.
Yes, Wambua.
Yeah, for the wound rotor,
Yes.
does it mean also the stator is wounded?
Actually,
Or for the case of wound rotor, the stator is not doesn't have the windings.
no, the stator, that's a good question. The stator of both the wound type and the squirrel cage is the same. It's the same stator. So for the wound rotor, we are calling it wound rotor because it actually has or contains the real windings, as in copper wires. That's why we are calling it a wound rotor. So it has windings, as unlike compared to the squirrel cage, which has the metal bars, which is copper or aluminium.
Oh, fine. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the questions. So for your assignment, as you can see on the screen, state and explain reasons as to why conductors of the squirrel cage rotor are skewed. So make sure that before the next lesson I have that assignment so that it can be marked and returned to you. Thank you for attending today's class. I encourage others to be attending classes, and make sure you work on the assignment timely. Thank you, and you are free to leave at your pleasure.
Thank you, sir.